After a week of military buildups and international diplomacy, UN weapons inspectors are back in Iraq looking for Saddam Hussein's biggest secret, a biological weapons arsenal believed to contain enough deadly germs to kill millions. Saddam has been so good at hiding it that the U.S. government believed it had been completely destroyed. It wasn't until 3 years after the Gulf War ended that a high-level Iraqi defector gave them the bad news. Not only had Saddam's most lethal capabilities survived, the UN Special Commission was being deliberately deceived. And this is the man who told them, General Wafik al-Samarahi, the highest-ranking defector from the Iraqi regime who has not been assassinated. We tracked him down overseas a few days ago.
The biological weapons project was a very special project. Only a few scientists knew about it.
General Samarahi knew because he was Saddam's former chief of military intelligence, and at one point had been asked to select targets for possible biological attacks.
Iraq still has these kinds of weapons. There were no less than 200 containers of biological agents. More than half were powder which can remain active for a long time.
You think he plans to use these weapons?
If he had to.
Against whom would he use them?
The Iranians were lucky the war ended in August 1988. If the war had continued, they would have been a target for biological as well as chemical weapons. Saddam personally asked a working committee of the General Staff to prepare a plan to hit Tehran.
It's difficult to tell whether everything General Samarahi says about Iraq's biological weapons capability is true, simply because Saddam has blocked UN inspectors from verifying their worst suspicions.
You take your hand off my inspector now. I have instruction from my boss.
But much of what he's told them has since been confirmed, and there is no doubt that Saddam has already manufactured enough germs to kill millions of people. Take this factory at Al-Hakam. Before UN inspectors blew it up last year, they combed every inch of it, and what they discovered wasn't chicken feed. Chicken feed is what the Iraqis claim to be making here, but 3 deadly biological warfare agents, anthrax, botulinum, and aflatoxin, were found on the equipment and on the ground, along with drying and milling equipment, crucial to turning them into weapons. UN reports say some of it had been loaded into missile warheads and into 400-pound bombs.
Whether those weapons would have worked effectively, I do not know. It is not a simple matter to make an effective biological weapon.
Dr. Matthew Messelson is a Harvard professor and one of the world's leading authorities on biological warfare. He says anthrax is the most worrisome of the biological agents Saddam has produced, but it requires a high degree of technical sophistication to separate and collect the microscopic spores that make it a deadly biological agent, even though the bacteria itself is relatively easy to grow.
A weapon requires generating a very special kind of aerosol, and that is not easy.
A mist.
A very fine mist, because only very small particles can reach and be retained in the depths of the lungs, and that's where inhalation anthrax gets started. It is almost invariably fatal, and takes exceedingly small quantity in order to initiate infection.
I mean, how does it work?
It generates a toxin and causes the production of certain things called cytokines, which puts you into shock, and that essentially kills you.
The shock kills you?
Yes, it's toxic shock that kills.
How long does it take?
Once symptoms begin, the average time before death is between 2 and 3 days.
Much of what we know about the deadly properties of anthrax was learned accidentally in 1979 at a Soviet biological weapons factory in the city of Sverdlovsk. It took the Russians 15 years to finally acknowledge what happened.
An anthrax aerosol escaped from a military laboratory and went downwind, killed sheep out to 50 kilometers downwind, killed people out to the end of the city limit, which was about 4 kilometers.
How many people?
About 70 people died.
At a news conference the other day, the Secretary of Defense held up a bag of sugar and said this amount of anthrax could wipe out a major city.
Yes, that's correct, if properly dispersed. I've calculated what might have been released at Sverdlovsk, and my calculation resulted in saying that 4 milligrams, that's 4 1,000ths of 1 gram, might have been the amount of anthrax aerosol that was leaked out or somehow escaped from that Soviet facility that caused approximately 70 people to die downwind. You couldn't even see 4 milligrams at such a small quantity.
You couldn't?
No. It's just a
wouldn't be a
tiny
drop?
speck. 4 milligrams of dried anthrax spores? No, it'd be much smaller than a drop. A drop would weigh a couple 100 milligrams, if you mean drop from an eyedropper. So this is an incredibly tiny amount of stuff.
So what's happened to the 900 pounds of anthrax that Saddam is believed to have manufactured at facilities like this one? And to the 25 missiles Iraq now admits were equipped with biological warheads? Iraq has told the UN Special Commission that it's all been destroyed, but offers no proof or documentation. The UN Special Commission believes it's just as likely that they're stashed somewhere underground in the desert, part of a shell game that has been going on since before General Sammarahi defected. At the time you were still in Iraq, was the government deceiving the UN inspectors?
There was a meeting in the presidential palace. Saddam said the special commission is a temporary measure, and we will fool them, and we will bribe them, and the matter will be over in a few months.
Did he say how he was going to fool them?
He thinks that everything is possible if you have enough money.
Was he talking about bribing the individual members of the inspection team, or was he talking about giving money or contracts to the governments that were participating in the inspections?
I think both. We in the Iraqi intelligence agency gave away presents of hard currency and gold to other intelligence agencies in the world, and to officials who are now ministers in different governments, but I can't name names.
Did he say who he was going to bribe?
He did not single out names, but he did not mean the Americans and the British.
So you're saying that that he felt the Americans and the British were the only people that were really taking this job seriously?
I don't say it is only them who take the mission seriously, but they are the most serious.
But Saddam clearly underestimated the UN inspectors' resolve. And in the months before the U.S. contingent was ordered to leave the country, there were a number of incidents in which Iraq was caught hiding or destroying evidence of biological weapons. On September 25th, UN inspectors were making a routine visit to an Iraqi food testing laboratory when they encountered several men with briefcases who were trying to hide from them. An American microbiologist who was leading the team opened the briefcases and found laboratory kits for testing 3 deadly biological organisms, along with documents and a logbook which indicated the lab had conducted tests in secret for 8 months under the supervision of the Special Security Organization, the same people the UN believes has responsibility for hiding biological weapons. Who guards these weapons?
They're special security.
Republican Guard?
They're part of the Special Republican Guard.
Were they hiding and moving these weapons when you were still in Iraq?
Yes.
And you knew about it?
Yes. Once I saw a number of Scud missiles being transported. The weapons are there, but your problem is not the weapons. Your problem is Saddam.
What he means is Saddam has already demonstrated that he's not afraid to use weapons of mass destruction. General Sammarahi was there when Saddam decided to use chemical weapons on the Kurds.
Saddam decided to send an aerial strike of 50 aircraft, each of which was loaded with 4 bombs, totaling 200 bombs. Their casualties were around 5,000. It was revenge for the Kurds taking part in the Iranian offensive.
General Sammarahi says Saddam's inner circle talked about the possibility of using agents to carry out a biological terrorist attack on the U.S., but he says it was not a high priority and he knew of no serious plans to do so. But the U.S. government takes the potential threat seriously.
Through this combination airlock shower,
Colonel David France is commander of the U.S. Army Medical Research Center of Infectious Diseases at Fort Detrick, Maryland, which has one of the largest biocontainment laboratories in the world. His job is to protect U.S. troops from weapons like anthrax. He has also served as chief inspector on 3 UN missions to Iraq.
I think technically the Iraqis have the capability to produce these weapons in an effective manner.
So you believe he's done field tests?
Yes.
On humans or on animals?
On animals.
Colonel France says Iraq has experimented extensively with delivery systems, primarily bombs and artillery rounds, which is not particularly an efficient way to deliver biological weapons because the heat can destroy much of the biological agent. He is also experimenting with aerial sprays from planes and helicopters, but biological agents work best when dispersed at ground level. Could somebody drive through New York City spraying a very fine mist and aerosol?
In theory, yes. An aerosol generator could be placed on really any kind of a vehicle.
They noisy?
The efficient ones are quite noisy, yes.
Can you see the mist?
You might be able to see a fine mist right near where it's released, but a few meters away you would not be able to see it.
Any smell, taste?
Not necessarily a smell or a taste.
It's pretty scary.
It is.
There is some good news. Anthrax inhalation can be effectively treated with antibiotics if caught in time. And Colonel France says the U.S. government is much better prepared to deal with a biological terrorist attack than it was just a few years ago. And Professor Messelson says it's not nearly as easy to carry one out or as likely to happen as some might think. In fact, he says it's already been tried.
The Aum cult in Japan, we are told, tried to release an anthrax aerosol across the street from the American embassy. Nothing happened. They didn't know how to do it.
So it's trickier than most people think.
It is. It's not something that you're going to do in your bathtub and put in a perfume bottle and go out and attack your neighbors.
As UN inspectors return to the field, they're returning to the old status quo. There are no guarantees they will have any more access or any more success locating Saddam's weapons or the documents that may hold the secrets of his biological arsenal.
It's impossible for Saddam to allow the inspectors to enter the presidential palace. I emphasize, and I am sure that these documents are there in the presidential palace, but I am sure that the inspectors will never be allowed inside.
And there's one more thing the general is sure of.
If you think that Saddam will give you the weapons, you are mistaken.
Never?
Abadan, never.
And with that, it is now my pleasure and honor to introduce the President of the United States, George W. Bush.
Thank you very much. Please be seated. Thanks for inviting me. So tonight I'm going to do one of my slideshows. These are actual unstaged photos pulled from the files of the White House photo office. So, ladies and gentlemen, I present a White House election year album. Here I am trying to explain John Kerry's foreign policy. Those weapons of mass destruction got to be somewhere. Here I am saying, Dick, if the Hunan Palace doesn't get lunch here in 4 minutes, we're going out. Nope, no weapons over there. Maybe under here.
The Pentagon estimates that Saddam Hussein is hiding 200 tons of deadly chemical weapons in Iraq. But 200 tons of deadly chemical weapons is only a tiny fraction of what the United States has stored at 8 chemical weapons depots in Utah, Kentucky, Arkansas, Alabama, Maryland, Indiana, and Oregon. Most of those rockets, bombs, and projectiles are 30 to 40 years old, and some of them are beginning to leak, posing a threat to tens of thousands of people who live nearby. The Pentagon is well aware of that threat, and in 1989, Congress passed legislation mandating that the communities around the chemical weapons depots be given maximum protection. 9 years and $600 million later, we decided to take a look at those weapons and to see if the people next door are any safer now than they were before. The Umatilla Army Depot is in the high desert of eastern Oregon, and for as far as the eye can see, there are thousands of concrete bunkers covered with earth. Beneath the mounds are hundreds and hundreds of chemical weapons, loaded with nerve gas and blister agent, just a few miles from 25,000 people who live and work in the area.
I think it's an extraordinarily serious health and safety issue, and it's got to be dealt with now.
Senator Ron Wyden of Oregon tells his constituents that the aging chemical weapons will eventually be destroyed in huge incinerators, but that's still years away.
Wait a minute, take it back down. Okay, now put it on.
In the meantime, the Army takes this stuff very seriously. If you want to actually see the chemical weapons, you have to undergo several hours of training with gas masks and in the use of antidotes to the chemical poisons, in case there's an accident.
Okay, it's clear.
Inside, there's heavy security, with orders posted telling guards to shoot to kill.
Is it safe to go in here?
It's very safe.
Lieutenant Colonel Martin Jacoby, the depot commander, gave us a tour of one bunker. Inside, we found 2,000 M55 rockets, obsolete now. The launchers have already been destroyed. But each rocket is still loaded with propellant and GB nerve gas, also known as sarin. A single drop will kill you.
Do you have leaks?
Occasionally have leaks. We've had 109 since 1984. When we say leak, we're not talking about a faucet, though. We're talking about vapor leaks at a very, very low level, to such a low level that they wouldn't even harm anybody.
What are the chances of one of these exploding?
There's not hardly any chance of any one of them exploding just by themselves.
Not hardly any chance at all isn't that comforting when you're talking about thousands of tons of nerve gas. And the chances of something going wrong are going up every day, according to tests conducted by the Army.
What did the tests show?
Well, the tests show that the stabilizer in the propellant has started to degrade to a certain point, and that the risk does get a little bit bigger, but not so much to be concerned that one of them's going to go off.
But the Pentagon is worried because as the propellant becomes less stable, the temperature of the chemicals rise, increasing the chance of a fire or explosion. 30 years ago, the Army conducted this test to see what would happen if a fire broke out inside a bunker. It showed that not only can a cloud of nerve gas leave the depot, the rockets can leave too. According to the Army, the worst-case scenario, what it calls the maximum credible event, could kill more than 10,000 of the 25,000 people who live in communities like Hermiston, Oregon, which is 6 miles downwind. So to protect them, Congress created something called the Chemical Stockpile Emergency Preparedness Program, or CSEP.
We're not equipped to take care of emergency in the city of Hermiston to this day.
Frank Harkenrider is the mayor of Hermiston. He says the CSEP program is a joke and challenges anyone to find the $25 million the federal government claims to have spent to protect people in his area.
Well, I'm going to tell you, Steve, I was sitting right over there at my desk, and when I got that piece of paper from the outreach office, how much has been spent around the United States and $25 million here, I said it's the biggest boondoggles ever hit America.
You think it's a boondoggle?
Sure it is a boondoggle. Where's the money gone? That's like running the business. Where's the money gone? Have you spent it, not paid your bills? Where's the money gone?
It certainly hasn't gone to the Hermiston Fire and Emergency Center, which would be the first agency notified in the event of an accident at the chemical weapons depot. Its job is supposed to rescue people, give out information over the 911 emergency hotline, and direct people towards the evacuation routes if a cloud of nerve gas heads this way. Chief Jim Stern says he can't do it.
Right now, the best thing we can do is to move our equipment and our manpower out of harm's way.
So you're saying you should run like everybody else?
We're going to leave.
Don't call 911.
That's right.
Chief Stern says 8 years have passed since the CSEP program began, and he still hasn't received any of the equipment his men need to do their job. He says if he sent them out of the building with poison gas in the air, they could be the first to die.
You either have to have monitoring to tell you where the chemical is, where the contamination is, or you have to have proper level of equipment to put your people into a contaminated atmosphere.
Protective equipment.
That's right. We have neither of those.
The money to buy the protective suits has been appropriated, but after 8 years, the various bureaucracies involved have not been able to decide which suits to buy. We asked the chief if he'd received anything at all from the $25 million that the federal government is supposed to have spent for Hermiston.
This is what we've received from CSEP so far. In this box up here, the 25 to 30,000 people in the community that are dependent on us for emergency services have this to assist us with.
What are they?
They're coveralls. That's a traffic indicator that's reflective, so hopefully somebody will go the way you want them to go. Slow and stop.
This is it?
This is it. There is some flashlights and batteries down there.
That's pathetic.
Yeah.
And things aren't much better at the largest hospital in the area, which is a few miles from the chemical weapons depot and directly in the path of the prevailing winds. Ken France runs the emergency room.
What would be the symptoms that people would show up with?
Copious secretions. These people are going to be drooling. These nerve agents stimulate massive secretions, and therefore people are literally drowning. Nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea, seizure activity, and coma and death.
If there were a chemical release, France said he would have to shut the hospital to protect the people already inside.
We would be real hesitant to open the doors. In fact, we would probably be sealing the doors to keep the agent from entering the hospital.
For years, the hospital's been told that CSEP money would pay for a ventilation system specifically designed to keep poison gas from entering the hospital. It's still waiting. Ken France says the medical staff would go outside to treat the chemical casualties, and they've trained in protective suits. But after 8 years, they're still waiting for the suits, too.
We have not received any protective equipment at this time. We are even looking at supplying our own and going out on our own and getting that.
You can find a few traces of the $25 million that the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, which administers the CSEP program, has spent here. Electronic billboards have been installed along major highways that can be used to flash information to motorists. Sirens have been installed, along with huge loudspeakers to give out warnings and directions in Spanish and English if there is a chemical weapon accident.
They put up sirens?
Right.
Do the sirens work?
Well, yes, they work, but the main problem I have, you can't hear them when you're inside the building.
You can't hear them?
Can't hear them inside.
The sirens were supposed to be complemented by an inexpensive piece of equipment called a tone alert radio. Casey Beard, the director of emergency management for Morrow County, says they were supposed to be installed in every home, business, and occupied structure around the depot. The radios give off a loud warning in the event of an emergency.
It's loud enough that if you're in any room in the house, you will hear it. And if you're hearing impaired, it also has a flashing strobe light. And it's intended to wake you up and then play a message.
And then it'll tell you what to do.
It will also provide additional information.
I mean, this is the backbone of the system, right?
This is essential to making it work.
Beard says the radios were supposed to be bought and installed several years ago, but the $2.7 million set aside for their purchase has apparently been spent on other things. For instance, the Oregon State Police got an expensive new communication system, but Morrow County doesn't have a single tone alert radio.
You were supposed to get tone alert radios and you haven't gotten them.
That's correct.
They spent all the money and they haven't solved the problem.
If an accident happens as we sit here today, we're not prepared.
I think the whole problem is we're the bottom of the food chain. And when you get down to where the rubber meets the road in the community, it doesn't filter down that far.
But this is ostensibly where you want the protection.
You would think
this
so.
Is why Congress appropriated the money.
Yes, sir. That's true.
Why haven't you gotten it?
I really don't know.
CSEP money did pay for an information center on Main Street in Hermiston to hand out literature, although most of the people we talked to in town said they'd never been inside.
What it is they do, we're not sure. Basically, they've got a lot of pamphlets and people drinking coffee.
You ever see anybody go in there?
Not other than the guy that is in there all the time. I've never seen another person in there.
At Hale's Bar, they all thought it was a colossal waste of money.
If the siren went off right now, that there was nerve gas headed this way, would you know what to do?
Hell no, I wouldn't know what to do. I have no more idea what to do today than I did 5 years ago. And if $25 million has been spent in part to educate me as to what to do, I've flunked badly.
I don't think we have enough time to do anything.
No, I don't either.
If it goes out there, we're gone.
Where is the money gone? I don't know. I can't answer the question. I've been asking that for a year and a half. I think the other mayors are a little disgusted. We're the closest, all these cities. This stuff hasn't arrived. Where's it gone? Your guess is as good as mine.
So we went to Washington, to the Federal Emergency Management Agency, to try and find out. But FEMA decided not to give us an interview. The agency doesn't have to cooperate with us, but it does have to cooperate with the General Accounting Office. According to a GAO report, most of the money simply disappeared into the bureaucracy to hire staff and to conduct study after study. $250,000 was spent on informational videos that were never even released. More than half the money never even left Washington. A lot of the money that did disappeared into state bureaucracies.
Do you know where all that money has gone?
Not precisely.
Dave Warren, the GAO's Director of Defense Management Issues, says the federal government has already spent $600 million and change on the CSEP program. He says he's never seen a government program so badly mismanaged.
We never really got what I would call, quote-unquote, an accurate accounting. We were concerned about the weak financial controls, and we said that created the vulnerability for waste and abuse.
Some of the money is still sitting in bank accounts unspent, but most of it is already out the window.
So they've spent the money on tone alert radios, and they've got everything but the tone alert radios.
They requested the money for tone alert radios and then evidently spent it for other purposes.
The GAO says the problems aren't limited to Umatilla and eastern Oregon. Communities around the other 7 chemical weapons depots also lack critical equipment.
If the money hasn't been spent on tone alert radios and protective gear for the emergency crews, what's it been spent on?
Well, it's been, and again, I can't give you a precise answer, and I would actually have to go.
You are the General Accounting Office. If
correct.
you can't give us a precise answer, who can?
Well, I don't think at this point you can get a precise answer.
Until all of this gets sorted out about the only thing the people who live next door to Umatilla and the other chemical stockpiles can do is to look at those bunkers filled with thousands of tons of nerve gas and keep their fingers crossed.
راح يقتلنا كنا لانه خسرت المعركه. انا راح انهزم. يلا كلكم نهزموا وياي. هزم. يلا كلكم نهزموا وياي. ويلي الله كناها والله. والله هذا هو جاي علينا. هذا هو جاي علينا.
rubbish, we Wu-Tang publish.
That niggas trying to dub this, the God serving justice.
Yo, y'all niggas talk rubbish, we Wu-Tang publish.
That niggas trying to dub this, the God serving justice. With ruckus, killer army, we leave the mic
Apocalypse in my fingertips, cinch a tight grip, enter the clip, filled with engraved initials of lyrical nondescripts. On my hit list, terrorist target I never miss. Strike a bullseye, say bonsai, and pull my fist.
Pull alive and shit, hang gliding off the side of a cliff. The country western bitch with known to choke, hold on my dick. Roll a split the size of dynamite sticks. Side swipe you in the mic booth, strike you to you Yoda on your main mix. Make your brain shift like earthquake plates in Vegas, Northlake kicks. Guarantee that ass a free facelift. Crack your jaw in 3 different places, leave you speechless.
Speak with a lisp, lyrics are force, so skip your dish, shuffle your track, bring the shit back and make you piss. Thoughts of suicide, razor blade pressed against your wrist. Vocals banging off the walls of your drums, you can't resist, sudden impact. Yeah, jet black, shine like shellac. Flash dance off disciple tracks, they off the meat rack. The combination's like 1 in a million. Puerto Rican, quarter Brazilian. 7 wise men making a killing in this rap world. Shattering niggas like glass buildings when my wind blow. You crabs move slow, murder you dolo, take your heads off. Ride no horse like
flow
playing polo.
Faster than stilettos, used to hesitate to let go. Now my darts echo for blocks and travel north rapidly like Metro. Clap happy rap cat, get at me with your faculty. See, half of them is petrol. A jelly like fit asses in the sex. So you butter soft, sweet talking, sleepwalking niggas get your neck broke for acting. CIA kid in my A, stay missing in action. Fire back when niggas start clapping, make
y'all
it happen.
Y'all niggas talk rubbish, we Wu-Tang publish.
That niggas trying to dub this, the God serving justice.
Yo, y'all niggas talk rubbish, we Wu-Tang publish.
That niggas trying to dub this, the God serving justice. With ruckus, killer army, we put the mic on the clutches. I use niggas for target practice. This year I'm planning to fuck the baddest actress on my waterbed boot mattress. I'm from the tribe of Shabazz, your Alpine endurance. Rhyme assurance was stolen by the thief of Baghdad. It's the world's greatest sound scanner. His elbows is made of steel like Tito Santana. The God's voice box connects with high frequencies, satellites and antennas. Prince of Dawn and Shaolin Highlander, but prevent the Holyfield stamina. I'll punch a hole in your stomach, snatch out your liver, wrap your body in a plastic bag, and tell my fans my new dance is dead man floating in the river. My Kodak thoughts picture dark clear visions like transition lizards. I rose with the illest, caution fingers you superstitious. I still murder your ass with influence of insanity conditions. Risen for disciple tracks make me wanna grab an